Hi, thanks for joining us on the Get Inspired Talks podcast. What you're about to listen to are highlights from a longer podcast. To listen to the entire episode, go to getinspiredtalks.com/podcast. Hi everyone, my name is Rod Jans and you're listening to the Get Inspired Talks podcast. For this episode of the Get Inspired Talks podcast, we visit with Kelly Strongitharm and Desiree Dupuis, the co-founders of 360 Financial Group and a registered charity called Reuben's Shoes. When it comes to Reuben's Shoes, Kelly and Desiree deliver access to education to impoverished children. They like helping people in need, especially children, and they dislike corruption. Now please help me welcome Kelly Strongitharm and Desiree Dupuis to the Get Inspired Talks podcast.
Well, right at the very beginning, so Reuben's Shoes wasn't an idea at the start. So basically what happened was I was sponsoring a little boy named Reuben through World Vision. You know, you go in the mall and you see those kiosks and the little pictures of the children are there. And Reuben was 3 years old in the picture and he just jumped out at me and I decided I want to sponsor him. And so for the next 7 years, we exchanged letters and pictures. And 7 years later, I wanted to go on Christmas vacation with my mom. And we decided to go to the Dominican Republic, where Reuben is actually from. And I asked World Vision if it was possible if I could meet Reuben, and they allowed for that to happen. So when he was 10 years old, I got to meet him for the first time in person. And, you know, we recognized each other because we had seen each other's pictures for the last 7 years, but we had never obviously met or really known each other, but there was this instant connection between the two of us. And even though we couldn't speak the same language, we just had this love for each other. And he's an incredible little boy. Then he was a little boy, not so little anymore. But I just spent the day with Reuben, and his older sister was there, Louisa. She was 18 at the time, and we were able to take them out for lunch. And during our lunch, I learned that it was Reuben's first time actually in a restaurant. And again, he's 10 years old, and it was Louisa's second time, and she's 18, and they ordered their food and barely touched it, and they wanted to take it back home for the rest of their family. And just throughout the visit, a lot of things just kept putting in perspective into my head. Like, I just couldn't stop thinking about the fact that, you know, I have friends who have 10-year-old kids, and how many times in a week do they get to go to a restaurant, let alone in their lifetime, right? And so we asked if we could go take them back to their house and spend some time with the rest of their family, and we were able to do that. And his family is so incredibly welcoming and loving. And again, we couldn't communicate with words really. We had a translator, but it was, it was just more that feeling that you got. And I just left that visit changed. Like, my heart was just changed, and I saw the world differently. I've traveled around a lot. I've had amazing opportunity to see the world, but I've never really experienced time with a family like I did there. And we left that visit and kind of, I felt a little bit sad leaving, not knowing if I would ever see him again, and really just wanted to help more within the country. Reuben, they didn't have any electricity, they didn't have any running water, they didn't have any really floors. It was like all mud floors, and they had very, very little, but yet they wanted to give so much. So I just really felt like I wanted to do more. But what do you do? What charities do you connect with? Where do you know, how can you trust where your money's going? I don't know how to revamp a whole, country. But something that stuck in my head was the kids running around in this village didn't have any shoes on, and it just kept replaying in my head. And so I did a little bit of research, and I found out that kids in countries like the Dominican Republic aren't able to go to school if they don't have shoes. So I thought, okay, well, this is an easy thing that I can do. I can a lot of my friends have kids. They outgrow their shoes very quickly. They're still in really great condition. I could collect, a couple hundred pair and take them back to the Dominican. Yeah, they were all running around with no shoes on the rubble. There's not cemented roads. Even cement wouldn't be good, but it was all rubble and dirt roads that they were running around. And yeah, they didn't have any shoes. And so, yeah, I left wanting to collect the shoes and felt really inspired, and came back and told Desiree and said, I have this idea that I'd like to, collect some shoes and send them back over to Ruben and his village. And she said, this is going to be big. I said, what do you mean it's going to be big? I don't think so. It's just a little small idea that I had. And we had one of our best friends told her about it, and Desiree and her both said, no, this is going to be really big. And they were right. As soon as I put the word out there, like just on Facebook even, we just got inundated with shoes. And my garage was very quickly full. We had drop-off locations spread around the Lower Mainland. We were going into schools doing presentations talking about the importance of giving and collecting the shoes. And people started to want to give us like cash donations, but because we weren't even anything at that point, that's how we registered as a nonprofit, so that we could accept the money to help ship the shoes down.
Well, it was just something so easy in the beginning when Kelly decided to launch a small project called Ruben Shoes and collect people's gently used shoes. So you're really helping them alleviate something that they no longer need anymore, and allowing them to give back and help people in a way that didn't involve reaching into their wallet. So I just knew that we would get way more than 100 pairs of shoes, and it was just, like an inkling that you've strung a chord, you've hit on an idea that I think is really going to take off. And sure enough, within 6 months, we shipped a container with 13,000 pairs of shoes. Yeah, it gives me chills just thinking about it right now. I always say that Ruben Shoes, Kelly's the founder. It was her idea. She sparked such a great idea, but it is a force and it has a life of its own. And I always say this, when you're at a concert and there's those balls that are floating around and the audience is just kind of guiding it, that's how we feel. So it has such a big momentum, and it's so powerful. And our job now is really just to keep guiding it and to keep allowing it to grow. But yeah, we've been on several trips to the Dominican Republic, and in the first few years, every time we would leave, a family would say, hey, we would love to help in this capacity. And we were like, oh, we don't have that capacity for you to help us, help them. And then something would happen on the trip where we're like, oh my gosh, we have somebody at home that wants to help in this way. So yeah, it's definitely been something in the universe and a force greater than us.
I really think, obviously it was the relationship with Ruben. I think my whole life I'd wanted to get involved in different, charitable activities, but you don't really know where to go. And then just that meeting with Ruben and the change that happened within me, and having the passion behind it. You have to have the passion that you really want to, make a difference, and know that you can make a difference, because without that, because it is very challenging, you're going to be faced with so many different roadblocks, but you just keep having that belief that it's going to work out, because it feels right. Like it's just one of those things. I don't know how to describe it so much. I actually feel like I'm being used through it all. Like, just I'm the lucky one that gets to do it. And yeah, really my answer would be the passion behind it all.
I would say definitely passion, because that's the start. If you don't have passion, then you don't have the drive to accomplish it. And then the passion leads to drive and determination, because when we started receiving thousands of pairs of shoes, we had no idea. We had never shipped a container and exported anything. We'd never sent goods to a developing third world country dealing with customs clearance. Like, we even had friends like, you can't do this. Like, how are you going to ship a container? Like, this is never going to work. And we just said, we'll figure it out. Like, we'll just make it work. And so part of it is not giving up and not listening to the no's and pushing through. And then part of it too is like, the magical force of the universe, because literally when we were about to send our first container, through a roundabout way, we ended up with an article on us in the province newspaper, and another woman from Alberta who was in the Dominican Republic who had goods that she wanted to send to the Dominican had Googled container Dominican Republic or something, and she found us, and she was the foundation that we ended up shipping our container to, because there's no way we could have shipped without having a partner on the ground. And so yeah, it's the activity, the perseverance, and when you persevere and when it's meant to be and when it's right, things like that will come together and work out.
And it's like, it's listening to that little voice that sometimes you're like, you want to shut out, because it's like you don't even have to have all the answers. You just know it's going to work out. I'm like, I don't know how it's going to work out, but it's going to work out. And that's so not in my personality on most other parts of how I do my life. But that's something that I do with Ruben Shoes, and actually it's given me, the Ruben Shoes has given me that kind of gift now to use that in the rest of my life. You have to believe and trust, and it works out.
Well, we're looking for inspirational stories, and this is certainly one on so many different levels. So thank you for joining us. And just before we go, what's the best website for people to find out more about what you're doing?
It's rubenshoes.com.
Okay, real simple. And if people are listening on iTunes or on SoundCloud, we'll have extensive show notes from this interview, and we'll have links to. I'll include some links to your social media accounts as well. So, thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join me today.
Yeah, thank you very much
for having us.
Talk to you soon.
Hi, and thanks for listening to the Get Inspired Talks podcast video highlights. For the entire episode, go to getinspiredtalks.com/podcast.